Now, let's look at, as we're talking about bread and butter issues around the economy are really close to the heart right now. Former governor of Edo State and senator representing Edo North, Adams Oshiomhole, has said that Nigerians are now saying food is becoming too cheap. Mr. Oshiomhole explained that the reforms by President Bola Tinubu's government were working when asked what would Mr. Tinubu use as his campaign point for re-election. Well, let's listen.
The truth is this: we promise radical reforms.
And that has radical implication on the pockets of the average person.
Which average person? You pick this from the mouth of the people. No. Have you gone to see people complaining? There are Nigerians now. Rates, there are Nigerians now who are saying food is becoming too cheap
cost of living.
Cost of living is what now? It's higher now.
No, I'm saying that from the time the president got into office and the policies.
Oh, there are Nigerians who are saying now food is becoming too cheap. Well, let's see what people had to say on X. A. Adebanjo tweeted and said, "We shouldn't let the comfort of the wealthy cloud the reality of the masses. Just because a few people don't notice the price of a basket of tomatoes doesn't mean the crisis is over. For the general public, the struggle to eat is still very real. We're seeing a gradual improvement compared to the peaks of last year, but for most, food is still far from affordable." Blings also tweeted and said, foodstuffs may be getting cheaper, but there is no money to buy. Now, we've joined this with a story where earlier in the week, a Nigerian man, Olabode Ifeanyi, shared a documented comparison of grocery prices between 2020 and 2026 after purchasing the same items listed on an old supermarket receipt that he had found. So in a post on X, Ifeanyi said he decided to buy every item on a receipt that was issued to him in 2020 to measure how prices have changed over time. According to the receipts he uploaded, the total cost of the items in 2020 was 25,225 naira. However, when he bought the exact same products in January of 2026, the total bill was 147,050 naira. So based on these figures, the increase represents about 582% price increase over 6 years. So they say that if your salary in 2020 has not increased by 6 times, then you are poorer. Well, this is what he wrote. So, of course, we know that just because these items have multiplied by 582% doesn't mean that the inflation rate is 582%. But just tying it into this conversation where we're saying Nigerians feel that food is becoming too cheap. Rufai, you've spoken a lot about this particular issue. I know you've had a lot of back and forth with Reuters as well about purchasing power and how purchasing power has been eroded.
My opinion was not to comment about it because I don't like to respond to partisan, very insular and tunnel vision opinions about the state and the plight of the Nigerian people. Are you referring
to Senator Oshiomhole?
Yes, okay. Because he's very partisan and his opinions are very, insular. Definitely, he can't talk against the president. He can't talk against the APC. He can't talk against the government. He can't. But I would like to do it to be able to set the record straight. Food is becoming too cheap, Mr. Oshiomhole, in a country that has 15% inflation, double digits. Can you reconcile both logically, even by? Food is becoming too cheap in a country. Let's even take their inflation number of 15%. But food is becoming too cheap in a country that has 15% inflation rates. Can you logically balance that argument? Food is becoming too cheap. Food is becoming too cheap in a country that its minimum wage can probably struggle to buy a bag of rice. Food is becoming too cheap. But in the same country, Vimbai, as in 1981, when they passed a new minimum wage that he knows about, that was 125 naira, that minimum wage could buy about 3-4 bags of rice. Food is becoming too cheap. Food is becoming too cheap in a country where people go to bed hungry. The poverty level has increased. A lot of people are slid into poverty. Food is becoming too cheap in a country where you have the astronomical costs of things. Food is becoming too cheap. Food is becoming too cheap in a country where people do 100 or 001. Food is becoming too cheap. Too cheap. Underline the word too cheap in a country. If food is becoming too cheap in Nigeria as we speak today, That means insecurity is not happening. That means what happened on Benin-Ore Expressway did not happen.
Okay, food inflation. Now, recently we discussed the Nigerian National Bureau of Statistics report, where they said the methodology, was changed, rebasing, methodology review, and all that, and they arrived at 15.15% in terms of headline inflation. Even in that report by the Bureau of Statistics, food inflation, according to the MBS, that many economists have criticized, they in fact admitted that food inflation has gone up. What most people use is to say, oh, a bag of rice that used to be over 100,000 or maybe about 76,000 is now about 50,000 naira. The question to ask is, that bag of rice that they say is now within the range of 50,000, is it a bag of rice that is coming from paddy production in Nigeria or from our rice fields, or is it importation? Is it that the government is importing and flooding the market with, more bags of rice ahead of this election season, so that you can create this impression, that food prices are going down? The reality is that, look, to survive in Nigeria is still a very expensive thing, even at the level of the basic need of being able to feed oneself. Now, the other thing, of course, is that I commend the gentleman. Some people here are very good at keeping junk, but that junk is now used to. Can you imagine somebody keeping a receipt of from a supermarket in 2020 and bringing it out in 2026 and going to compare and contrast? As they say, the thing speaks for itself. If you spent 25,000 naira in 2020 and now you are spending over 100,000 to buy the same items, there should be no argument about that. The thing is obvious enough. It speaks for itself. But part of the responsibility of government is to ensure food security, which is one of the major subjects that the Vice President of Nigeria, leading the delegation of Nigeria to Davos World Economic Forum, addressed yesterday about food security. Maybe when we deal with food security and we prioritize primary agriculture, which we have not done, then maybe perhaps we begin to see concrete improvement. It's not through rhetoric. It's something that can be adjudged through reality. Through
reality. Now, I'd like you to comment on that as well as the next story. So let me take this so you can take them together. Right. Yesterday, social media was agog as Abdul Rashid Maina, the former chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Pension Reforms, claimed that the assets currently linked to Abubakar Malami, former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, represent far less than a quarter of what was allegedly misappropriated. Maina recently gained his freedom after serving an 8-year term at Kuje Correctional Center following a conviction of money laundering to the tune of 2 billion naira. He was speaking while receiving the Rule of Law and Courage Award from the Garki branch of the Nigerian Bar Association in Abuja. And Maina said the authorities have only scratched the surface, adding that more can and should be recovered from Malami, as he called for further investigations.
What one has seen so far is not even one quarter. Because my speciality is the recovery of public funds. I trace funds wherever they are, and that is why they've been after me. We can recover these funds from Malami. They are more than what has been seen. What is 217 billion properties? Yes, the government is doing the right thing. The government is doing the right thing because if we don't start there must be accountability, transparency, and the rule of law, which is what I see this government is actually doing, as against what the last administration has been doing. Because all these things happened during the last administration. I don't believe this could happen in this administration.
He doesn't believe. Well, let's see what social media have to say. They said on X, you see, if it's in one of the foreign countries, they can use this ex-convict to achieve a lot because they deal with idea and experience. Not everything is political. Mena knows how these works because he did it too, so he'll know how to get it recovered. Well, that's one side of the story. Umar also tweeted and said, unbelievable. Who secretly pardoned Mena? I know he was convicted in 2023 and was meant to serve 8 years in prison, and the Court of Appeal also upheld the judgment of the High Court. And I did do the findings, and that case was concluded in 2023, but he's clearly out of Kuje Correctional Center. Hasn't been 8 years yet since 2023, so that's another investigation that needs to be done.
But let me just say, maybe on good behavior, since now he's now a bastion of the rule of law, having been recognized by the Nigerian Bar Association to boot. NBA recognized him shortly after coming out of prison based on corruption charges. You cannot make this up. Sometimes stories like this only happen in countries like Nigeria, and we need to change that narrative. I think the fact that he has the boldness to come out to speak at, receiving that award is a slap on the face on a lot of Nigerians, particularly pensioners who had to suffer as a result of misappropriation of funds, which he was sentenced for. That's one. On the other hand, in terms of what he said, according to the money, there's still an investigation ongoing with regards to Malami's case. And until that is concluded, he cannot make statements except he wants to perhaps offer information that would help the investigation to properly convict him if found guilty. And then that's absolutely correct. What he's saying is not out of the ordinary. But let me put this out side by side with the previous story of him by around what Senator Oshiomhole said, and just listen to people who are watching, hearing these huge amounts of money being looted by people who are supposed to hold the money in trusts, and you're languishing trying to afford 1 meal a day. And you talk about why crime should not be on the increase or why people shouldn't help themselves. Yes, you can give the moral justification for that, but you have to understand that when we continue to see largesse like this through corrupt means and the people are suffering, you are just giving fodder for more criminality. That's why kidnappers will have a justification for going out to do what they want to do. Bandits will have a justification. That's why we'll see people who are terrorists being indoctrinated based on these things that we see and we listen that sound like fiction. And so when that's on one hand. On the other hand, with what Senator Oshiomhole said, is the fact that it also shows that perhaps people in government are totally out of touch with the realities of Nigerians, pure and simple. He might actually believe what he said because maybe he went to the market and he saw, and he shows, and that's worrying. If a senator can say make such a statement, means let him go to his senatorial district and see how many people can afford to eat in that senatorial district. And so I'm worried if someone who has perhaps even the ears of the president is making statements like this, how will they make policies rightly for to address food security? The president declared a state of emergency on food insecurity. If you go and tell him that, no, sir, they're even saying that food is too cheap. Are these the people that he's listening to? Are these the people that are advising the president? They are completely out of touch, and that is a huge problem. This is a senator who is meant to be representing the voices and the plight of his people. And so maybe he needs to go back and speak to his constituents and really find and feel the pulse of the people and know how many Nigerians are suffering, how many Nigerians are hungry, how many Nigerians have been pushed into poverty since this administration began. I think it's quite insensitive, and I think it demonstrates just out of touch some of our leaders are with the realities on ground of people who cannot afford even a meal a day in Nigeria.
No, it was quite insulting to be told food is too cheap, because I don't feel that food is too cheap. I'm still finding it extremely expensive to just buy the basics. Well, different strokes for different folks. Maybe they will increase. I do. I love it.
You should employ somebody who would do
No,
your shopping
I like to
for
haggle. I like to bargain and negotiate.
You need to save every penny. every single kobo.
Yeah, exactly.
You big television personalities going to the market. You should recruit somebody.
I wear face mask and face cap, and I go and they don't say, look at this woman, let me increase the price. I go and say, I'll speak Yoruba to them. You have to save every penny, every kobo.
Just imagine. You're just still on this matter. See the list that guy brought out to do the compare and contrast. That's 145,000. Is that no more than the so-called minimum wage?
It's double the minimum wage. Double the minimum wage.
So the states. Although some states like Rivers and Lagos, they pay more.
Yeah.
Let's, you know, it is a Friday. If Oji were here, I know she would be saying TGIF. So let's lighten the mood a little bit.